I'm going to start 2 cross-stitch projects. These 2 projects, I bought the pattern from the thrift store, and I also got the kit from a thrift store. So if you are looking at all at the craft section at any of the thrift stores, you can certainly luck out. This Lizzie Kate Thankful String, which is an alphabet sampler. There were a couple of things that I was thinking about when I was getting ready to start it. One had to do with the color of this fabric, and they used what is called light mocha cashel. Of course they used WIPS Dye Works thread, but I'm not going to use that. If I can use what's in my stash, I'm certainly going to. If you remember this project, this fabric actually looked pretty close to what they used, but I don't have enough of this fabric. I went to my stash and I pulled out a few choices, and I kind of let you know my thought process here. If we think about when we're looking at a pattern and we're trying to decide what we want to do, if we don't buy a kit that has everything in there, and even then, I'm going to talk to you about the kit that I got in a minute, and then you can see my thought process on that. Turn this back over and again block out the pattern itself just so that you can see what's up on top here, which shows you that they're using the 28 count, which is essentially equivalent to a 14 count Aida, or even you can get a 28 count Aida. They're recommending stitching with 2 threads out of the 6 strand thread, which I've talked about before. I don't like using 2 threads. I don't know why that's standard, but 2 threads, in my opinion, over a 14 count fabric doesn't have good coverage. So I like to use 3 threads over 14 count. Or if I'm doing a 28 count, which this again is the 14 count equivalent. In this situation it doesn't matter, but in the kit, when I get to that, I will show you why I decided to do what I'm going to do with it. But if we go back to the front, well, anyway, what I was going to say is they give you the size, the approximate size, which is 13.5 by 1, so 14 by 1. And if you were going to add 3 inches on all sides, then we're talking about essentially 20 inches by 7 inches. And if you look at most prepackaged fabrics, you're going to find that the standard is 15 by 18. So you usually have a choice of these 2 sizes, which is this 20 by 24, and these are all 15 by 18. Now this is an 18 count, this is a 16 count, and this is a 14 count. Now anytime you go smaller, then you get a better chance of, you can use like this converter, which will give you the size of fabric you need for the count of fabric that you're going to use, whether it's 14, 16, or 18. Anytime you use something that they've stitched and given you the size on 14, it's going to be smaller, of course, by the time you use 16 or 18 count. And sometimes that will work better for you in the long run. And I've done that many times to save on fabric, or just because I want to have a smaller picture. It's also cheaper to frame a smaller picture if you're going to have it professionally framed. Like I said, I had some choices. I did have this Monaco, which is a tea color, which is very close, and I think would have worked perfectly fine if I wanted to. And it's a 20 by 24, it's a 28 count, but I decided that I didn't want to cut a tiny piece out of this. I looked at my fiddler's cloth, I looked at this natural. This natural would have been okay too, I think. And this is a 16 count. But when I did the conversion, even with a 16 count, I was running too close to this 18, and it didn't give me quite as much room on the edges as I would have liked. So I had to rule out this natural, or I would have used the natural. And the fiddler's cloth, I just didn't think would look good with it. So I ruled that one out pretty quickly too. This was a 14 count, so obviously I couldn't use the cream one. So then I was back to white and this antique white. And I thought that both of these would make these colors on this particular sampler stand out really well. White would be great. But again, I thought, oh, do I really want to do this and cut a piece of this really nice Monaco fabric out? Because I don't have much of this in my stash. And I know you're supposed to use your stash. I just tend to hoard it for whatever reason. So I'm going to try to do better on that. But this, as you can see, has a piece in here that I had previously cut. And I thought the antique white would really make these colors stand out in this particular pattern as well. But this is 14 count, and I can use my own thread. In addition to, hopefully the size is going to work, and I cut it right across the bottom. And it looks like I've cut a kind of a square piece out of it, but that's fine. So I'm going to just cut this the rest of the way across. Whoops. I'm going to cut this the rest of the way across, right on top of this same line. And this is a great size for another small project, so I'm going to, of course, save that. Now, this piece measures It measures 9 inches, and I'm not going to change that. I'm just going to use the 9 inches. That gives me extra added room in case I'm off on my center, which happens for me. And then I'm going to just measure this, which I don't know if that's all on the screen, and it is. And I'm just going to measure it from here because it's what I have in front of me. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, which was the goal that I was set at. But this, of course, is still 24 inches. So I have a 9 by 24 inch piece, which I think will be perfect for that. I went into my stash and I pulled what threads I could find. There's a good chance that in some project that I've got started someplace that I've got threads that are pulled. And it's a good chance I just don't have the color. But I need these 3 colors, and I will have to go get those. Of course, I'm going to fold it. I'm going to find my center spot, and I'm going to crease that. And then I'm going to fold it this way. And I'm going to do the same thing. Find my center spot. These came in that kit, that cross-stitch kit. And I think they're going to work just fine on 14 count. But I'm going to just mark my center on here so that I know where it's at. So where I went in here is where I know where my center is. But now my pattern is all along one length, and I don't have to get too confused. It looked like 5 to me, but I wasn't sure. So I need to do 5 stitches, and technically I should have started over here because of the way that it looked on the divided pattern. So I'm going to go over 1 and get this started again. Now I'm going to roll this up so I can hang on to the fabric, and I'm going to get started. So I know I'm going to go this direction, so I'm just going to pull that thread that way and get started on my 5. Once I get 1 on the back, I feel like I'm pretty good here. And I didn't even do that. I went over too far. Oh, there are days. There are days. So I'm going to go over, pull it tight, and that'll kind of get it held pretty good for the next 4. So now I'm going to go through and make sure I catch it on the other side. This makes 3, and this one here is 4. And one more makes 5. All right, so there is my start, and I've caught my thread. And I'm just going to trim this off because sometimes as you're working it ends up getting caught and coming back through. All right, there's my start. And I don't know, I might, this is kind of hard for me to hang on to, so I may grab one of my hoops and use it. This project should not take that long because of how small it is. I'm going to get these 5 started, and then I'm going to move on to the other project and show you. I'm going to go off down here and just stick my needle through there to hold it. This kit I got also at a thrift store. And this kit was a 1990 cross-stitch kit, Dimensions cross-stitch kit. I also got this at the same time, which is one of the gold collections. This is the Mystical Angel Tree skirt. Now, this did not come with the thread. It came with the fabric, which is an 11 count, which is crazy. An 11 count ivory Aida cloth. I don't know what I would ever do with an 11 count Aida cloth. I know, well, if I made this skirt, I guess I would. It does have the instructions, even though it doesn't have the thread. So I don't know, somebody decided to keep the thread, or else it got lost. I may just put that 11 count thread up on eBay and see if anybody wants to buy it, because I'm probably not ever going to use the 11 count. I really bought it because of the pattern, this angel pattern, because I would probably make maybe these 2 angels. I don't know if I'd make this one. She looks a little weird as she's standing. She's pretty, but I would probably make these 2 angels and frame those separately on pictures. So that's why I picked it up. I think this cost me $6, and at the Veteran Thrift Store everything is 50% off on Sundays. And if this would have been regular fabric that wasn't 11 count, man, that'd been a good deal for sure. But I'm okay with that with the patterns. This one was the other one I bought, and this is the one I'm going to start because I am going to make this for a friend for her birthday, and her birthday is in May, and so I have about 6 months to get it done. I should be able, hopefully, to get it done in 6 months. This kit was sealed, and I did open it. But it had, you know, has everything with it. It has the thread, it has the fabric, and I am going to use this fabric for something else, but I'm not going to use it for this project. I thought there was a needle in there that I just missed. There it is. I'm going to pull that out and stick it in my little cat dish. I wanted it to be a little bit smaller because this I will probably have professionally framed. My friend has a gray and white cat. But it says, warning, on duty, attack cat. These premises protected. It says feline neighborhood watch, 24 hours. It's cute. But I will tell you, I decided that I was going to do this on 16 count because I wanted to use their thread. I didn't want to use my thread. I wanted to use the thread that came with the kit. I can do 2 strands. If I don't do 2 strands of this thread, I'll run out of the thread. I can't do 3 strands and complete this project. So I found this KCS cross-stitch Aida cloth fabric on Amazon. It's 19 by 28, and when I did the measurements, 19 by 28 works fine. This, United in Marriage, the Vera's Victorian wedding record, finished size is 12 by 15. I did this, and I actually finished it, believe it or not, years and years ago. And I don't know if I told you the story about this, but I'm going to tell you the story about this particular picture. It's beautiful. When it comes out, it's absolutely gorgeous. And you use some gold filament, if I remember correctly, in a mix in some of these. I mean, it's beautiful. I made it for my niece. It was the first time I ever made a marriage sampler. Made it for my niece and had it professionally framed. And at the time, I mean, this was, I would say, early 2000s, if I can remember correctly. It was the early 2000s, maybe even the late 1990s. I think it was early 2000s. But anyway, so 25 years ago. It was so pretty that when I took it down, I worked at a company in Post Falls that did their own shipping. They made their tools and they did their shipping. And so I went down to see if I could get them to pack it for me and pay them to pack it and get it ready to ship. And one of the guys down there thought it was so beautiful. He asked me, he offered me, I don't remember at the time, $300. I don't even remember what it was, to tear out the names of my niece and her future husband. Of course, at that time I was late getting it to her, but not too late. So her current husband, tear out those names and date and put his name and his current wife and date's name in there, and then buy the picture from me. That's how beautiful it was. So I turned him down, of course, because it was for my niece. And it was the first one, like I said, I'd ever made that was a marriage sampler, and I was really anxious to give it to her for her wedding. Gave it to her, sent it, mailed it, cost a ton to mail it, but I got it mailed, sent it all the way to Kansas, right? I'm trying to think, it was a couple years later, maybe, if even that long, they got divorced. Not only did they get divorced, but when she wasn't home, he took everything of hers out of the house into the front yard and burned it. I'm remembering correctly. He either trashed it or he burned it. I can't remember. I'm thinking he burned it. This was a long time ago. This was one of the items that he burned. And I was like, you got to be effing kidding me. Because the amount of hours and cost that went into making that marriage sampler was extraordinary. And the meaning behind it was extraordinary. And I'm sure maybe that's why he threw it in there. I don't know. But anyway, it was gone. At the very least, I could have got it back and literally took out those names and gave it to maybe to somebody else. Okay, so that was my story on my first marriage sampler. The second time, I thought, okay, well, I'm going to do this again. I made a second marriage sampler. I have to find the picture somewhere if I can find it. Made it for my brother on his second marriage. And that should have been a clue, right? Okay, but I gave it to him on his second marriage, not this one, of course, like I said, another one, and had it professionally framed, finished it, gave it to him. A year later, they got divorced. And I'm like, oh, for God's sakes. So that's 2 for 2, right? Am I jinxing him? Or, is that just the way it is with so many people? They just get divorced. Well, he was married, I think, three times, I think. Anyway, I got the marriage sampler back. Believe it or not. That one I got back. And it is actually still sitting someplace in my stash because I thought I am not going to re-give that away to somebody. So at some point, if I pull it out and anybody on here might be interested in it, they can tell me they want it and I will mail it to them. They can finish tearing out the names, put whatever names in there they want to, and use it. But anyway, those are my stories on marriage samplers. So I have never made a marriage sampler since. If I'm going to give a cross stitch to anybody for a wedding gift, it's a welcome sign. It says welcome, or God bless this house, or it's a nice little poem of some kind that they can put up on their wall that doesn't have any names or dates on it. So if they get divorced, the person who I gave it to, whether it's a family member or a friend on my side, they can take it with them. I'm just saying, I don't make marriage samplers anymore. Anyway, back to this. Okay, so this fabric, it's actually softer. This picture is very large. I'm not going to show you the whole pattern because I can't, but as you can see, it is very large. But normally I photocopy it into sections, and then I either work in the sections or I tape the sections together. Kind of like what I did with this, only I would have done this with photocopy, not the actual pattern. Yeah, I kicked myself in the butt for that, but that's all right. It is what it is. From the center point, from where it looks like the center point is, that this little section, if I work this direction, in other words, make this the top of the picture and this the bottom, the way that it looks, most of this will be covered up within the stitching. And it may have a little bit left, but I think it'll be okay. It's not going to be, I hope not too noticeable. We'll see as I work up. I'm just seeing if maybe I can blend it. If they will blend a little bit better, because they just look like something happened in the process of the weaving. So anyway, a little bit. All right, I'd like to start with this pink or this blue, because it's going to give me a good frame of reference. So instead of starting here on this cat, I'm just going to work my way up here a little ways up till I get to about here, and then I'm going to stop, and then I'm going to be able to see where I'm at as I either decide to work down. This is back stitching, so I probably won't do any of the back stitching until the end, but then I'm going to work up here a little ways, because I want to see for sure what this is going to look like in the end when the stitching is on there. And the pink is a dusty rose, and there's 10 strands of it. So one way to look at this, and I'm going to have to block out part of the picture here. If you look here, these are all the same number of lengths, and so then these are all green. Hopefully when you lay them out, you'll be able to distinguish them. But a good way also is to distinguish it too is this dusty rose, which is the one I'm wanting to start with here, is 10 strands. And I know that it is obviously a pink, and there are 3. There's a wine as well, so 4 kind of pinks, and a lot of times they're grouped. So here you will see right off the bat where those pinks and wines are, and you can kind of pull those out. I mean, you may miss one, have to go back and get another one. Sometimes it's a guesswork on what's what, but I definitely think I got them all. This might be, but I'm thinking this one here is another pink one. We'll see. So then you got to lay them out and try and match the colors, and the way that you're going to distinguish them is usually by length number. So here, let's get these kind of separated, see if we can tell the difference between some of these in this light. So when I put this on the card, I know that one strand is wine, so I'm pretty sure this is wine. I'm going to double it. I'm going to stick it through one of these holes on the card. And then I'm going to loop it so that it stays just like this. There's my strand. And I'm going to write on here wine, so that I know what color that is. Okay, so I got my pink separated, and I can use 2 strands because that's what it wants me to use, because I'm using the 16 count. Alrighty. My dog's still snoring. Five of them, and it's about nine stitches over. If I'm a little off by 1 or 2, I'm not going to worry about it because I have so much extra fabric. Yeah, I need to get myself together here with this. I need to do 5 of these stitches. I'm going to hold that thread on the back, probably out of, and I want to try to catch that. So am I okay? Yep. So I'm going to try to lay that a little bit flat. Just pull this through. And there I've caught it. A lot of times once you do it once, you don't need to worry about it anymore. And I need to do 5 of these pinks. Once I catch these, I don't need to worry so much about it. Checking my back. This makes 4. One more makes 5, and it's caught well enough. But after I've done these 5 stitches, I know that I have to go diagonal up 1 and then do 4 more. And because I already came up in this stitch, I can't go back down in that stitch, so I'm just going to come up here. Okay, so that's where I have to do my next 4 stitches. And I can't do much more without my needle threader. But this tail on the back, I'm going to clip most of it off because I know that it's on there really well. All right. So there is the start of my 2 projects, and I'm going to have to, like I said, this isn't sticking worth. So don't use frog tape. Frog tape doesn't work. Doesn't stick at all. It's great for if you're doing cards. If you really want like if you're watercoloring, it's great for that. It sticks much better on paper, but it doesn't stick very well on fabric. So those are my 2 starts. The fall pattern and the cat, and these are pretty much going to be the only 2 things that I work on until this is done. And then I'm going to start another fall one. Again, I got it at the thrift store. This one I actually got out of the bins, this fall warmer, but I'm going to actually just make it in a little picture, not on a sweatshirt. I'm hoping to get these 2 done maybe by the end of the month. We'll see. I may see if I can find a short story that I can read while I'm stitching, maybe these. But these are 2 I'm hoping to get done by the end of the month. Like I said, because they're so small, I think I might be able to do it. Anyway, thanks for watching. Take care, stay safe, be kind.